The third of our icons is going to be this notebook, and if you'll just quickly take a look at it, there's a couple of features that are unique-ish with it. It has a rectangular back edge, but it has a rounded rectangular front edge. It's got a bunch of line work on it and a decent number of objects that are sort of strangely cropped or positioned. So all of those are things that we'll have to deal with as we work our way through it. I'm going to scoot it off to the edge and start to create the basic objects and forms that I'm going to need. For this one, I'm going to start with either a rectangle or a rounded rectangle. It doesn't actually matter what order you go in. You're going to need both, and they're going to need to be the same height. So, pick one. I'm going to pick a color that is different than the color I used previously. I don't think I've got any green so far, so I'm going to do green for this one. And I'm not liking it running off the page, and it's mostly having to do that because of my pen nib. I'm temporarily going to scooch the pen nib off the back edge. And I can always scale everything a little bit more later on, but for now, this gets me the front part of the notebook in the way that I need it to be. And that works. I'm now going to grab the regular or the standard rectangle tool. I'm going to use the smart guides to tell me when it's in the correct position, and I'm going to draw that rectangle that will give me the back edge of my notebook. If you didn't draw yours quite the right size initially, adjust them up or down as necessary until they exactly match in terms of their height. If you're not sure of how to do that, you can open up the transform window and you can make them identical heights. So to get to mine, I could do window, transform. The width obviously is going to be different, but it's the height that we're specifically concerned with. And you could type in identical heights in that field for those two objects, and then you're good. All right, so those pieces, I don't need my line palette right now, are in a good place. I could go ahead and do some uniting of them, but I'm not quite ready for that part yet. Well, sure, why not? It might make things a little simpler long term if you can see how this comes together. So I'm going to select them both. I am going to use my shape builder, and shape builder again says two circles that sort of overlap with the triangle about halfway down the tool palette. I'm going to hold down the mouse and drag across those two pieces to get rid of the line that was separating them. So that unneeded piece is now gone. I'm going to add an additional line to form that sort of division I was seeing between the front and the back. It needs to be the same height as they are, so just pay attention to your smart guides and so forth, and you'll end up with it in the right place. So that piece is there. The rest of this is now the label and the tabs and the place where I don't actually even know what that part at the top is supposed to be, but there's this little division at the top, so I'm going to put it in. And it hangs off the right edge. I'm going to have to get rid of that part in a bit. I'm going to put the tabs on there. They're going to end right at the edge of the notebook proper. So pay attention to them. And the good news is that if you've drawn one of them, you can use it in terms of alt-dragging copies to make the rest of the tabs. The trick here is just getting in the right spot to grab it. Mine doesn't have a fill, which makes it a little bit harder to grab. If yours does, you probably have a little bit of an easier time than I just did. Okay, the other thing that you can do if you're using this is my tabs could have stuck into my notebook a little bit, and I could have used Shape Builder to fix that. So if you're not sure if you're exactly on the edge, then have them hang inside a little bit. It's easier to fix that than it is the opposite when they don't quite touch and you need them to. Last part is my label area, and I'm going to create a couple of lines that go inside this, and then I'm going to Shape Builder to fix any of the parts that need to be refined a little bit. And that is all of the necessary elements for my notebook. All right, here's the fixing. I'm going to select everything but the label, or I could do the label too and just not worry about the fact that it's also selected. And I'm essentially going to ignore the label for now. I'm going to grab Shape Builder and I'm going to get rid of first the outside part of that upper section that is not needed. I really had no choice but to do that one for this because of the fact that it needed angular corners on most edges but a rounded front corner. So I needed to have it hang out the edge so that I could get that clean trim. The same is not necessarily true for the other tabs, but it was easier to make sure that they came right up to the edge if they hung into. So I'm just, no modifier key, no alt key is required for this. I'm just combining or adding those shapes into the body shape of the notebook. So it was alt drag to get the outside part gone and just click and drag to combine the shapes on the front edge. And all right, so that's now pretty much finished. The last thing I have to do to finish it is group it, which is object group, and then potentially scale it downward a little bit. And I can move my pen nib back in. I can scale him a little bit if I need to. I'm shift scaling, so I do it proportionally. And now these are all the pieces. In the instructions I mentioned, you can do it all in a file together, which is how these are. Or you could turn in the camera, the pen, and the notebook separately. If you do them separately, I do ask that they be zipped together. It just makes it a little bit less cumbersome for me to grade it, but I'm fine with them all being in a file. If you're saving out of Illustrator, it's just going to be a file save. You can do it as Illustrator, which is a .ai file, or as a PDF. Either of those options is fine. I'm going to do save as and just show you what that field looks like for this guy. And you've got PDF and EPS, and anyway, but so either AI or PDF is what we're looking for here, and these would just be icons. And then they're done, and you turn that one in.